Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your host, Josh Udall, and I'm happy to be on here with you. We have a list of things to get into today. Well, asylum seekers that reside in Quebec and Ontario, well, they're finding new homes. They're sending them elsewhere. The Canadian government coming out with a plan today. Mr. Mark Miller, our immigration minister. That's one thing that's going on. Second, Pierre Poilievre coming out saying we're going to force a vote to see what Sing is really all about and seeing if he means what he means. This and so many more stories we have listed and ready to go tonight. We are excited. And as you hear, I'm using the term we a lot. I've been waiting to share this with you as we've kind of made this change in how we approach the show now. What is happening is that we have a team behind the show now. Yep, don't have a co-host on screen with me, but I have people behind me doing lots of research, getting into things, and Reg may or may not be on that team. Who knows? And but the beautiful side of it is it's not just me. I'm not operating alone. I'm working with the team behind me. Yes, I'm the face. I'm sharing the news with you, but I have people behind me that are just getting ready right into the nitty-gritty and helping me out getting this party started. So we are so grateful to be on with you. We have a half hour here, so we really got to get her going because there's so much to get into. First thing we got to get into is, well, there's some terrorism happening in Ontario. Some unfortunate incidents happening over the weekend and some serious events that need to be discussed. We need to have a conversation of what the heck is going on in Ontario right now. I am it's beside myself what's happening over there right now. So we have to have a discussion and get right into the nitty gritty. Shall we? Let's do it.
A Simcoe woman has found herself in hot water after an incident involving a water gun. She says a neighbor...
Let's rewind that there. There you go.
A Simcoe woman has found herself in hot water after an incident involving a water gun. She says a neighbor called police after she accidentally sprayed him with a toy water gun. Not only did police show up, but they charged her. CTV's Jeff Pickle joining us now with more on this. And Jeff, really no laughing matter here. The woman facing a rather serious charge.
Tony, very serious, and Wendy Washik is a 58-year-old educational assistant. She says she was playing around with some kids from the neighborhood at a backyard barbecue when she accidentally hit the neighbor with the water from the water gun. Police were called and they have laid a charge of assault with a weapon.
Yeah, very similar to that, like a pump style.
On most days, it's a harmless toy. But right now, a water gun is a major source of anxiety for 58-year-old Wendy Washik.
I've cried myself to sleep many nights.
According to Washik, she was visiting neighbors in a backyard and started playing with some of the kids.
And because I love kids and work with kids, I asked him if he had any water guns, and he said, yeah.
Washik says she was chasing one of the kids from the backyard to the front yard when the incident happened.
I was trying to figure out how the water gun was working. It's not like I play with water guns at this age. As I was going through the gate, and it accidentally hit the neighbor that was like maybe 3 feet away cutting his grass.
She says the man called police who arrived and spoke with him, but she says police never talked to her.
They had told my husband to bring your wife out of the backyard, that I'm being charged with assault with a weapon.
That's assault, brother.
They didn't ask me one single question. They didn't interview one single person.
Washik, who works as an educational assistant, says she has been put on leave by her school board.
And the mental and financial stress that has been put on my family, my children, and my husband is not right and is not fair.
Neighbors say they've had ongoing issues with the man who phoned police.
Lots of neighbors, police called on him, and they're constantly here.
It's been a reoccurring issue on the street of police being at his house for very, very minor issues.
Bobby and her son Liam say they crossed the street just to avoid the man's home.
The friends are allowed to come to our house, but we no longer allow them to come to this house.
The neighbors we spoke with say they feel police are being weaponized against them.
I don't think it should be that way. I think our system's really messed up when it comes to that.
We all get along fine. We're not calling the police on our other neighbors. It's always the one individual who's calling the police out.
According to Norfolk County OPP, they will not comment on specifics of this incident, but do say we are committed to maintaining high standards in our investigative work, regardless of how the public may perceive the allocation of resources. The Washik family have retained a lawyer, and their daughter started a GoFundMe page to help with legal expenses, but Wendy is hopeful the situation is resolved long before it gets to a courtroom.
So that's that story. That was hilarious. And the only question I have is that the only thing that went through my mind is, that's assault, brother. That was comical. The fact that we have, there has to be something we can do to make sure our police resources aren't wasted on things like that. That is quite ridiculous. And quite frankly, we don't have a whole lot of time for it, but kind of funny at the same time. I can only imagine this guy's just mowing his lawn, enjoying his life, and just gets a little bit of a graze of water on his arm. Looked up, realized it wasn't the sky, so he couldn't be the man that yells at cloud. He then turns around and yells at woman over here for squirting him with the water gun. Oh, he's jumping. What a time to be alive. And we got to just... It is what it is. We got to move on, though. That's figure that would be a good way to lighten things up, because there's some serious things we actually have to discuss today. First off, terrorism at home, which is actually more serious. FBI informed Canadian authorities that Mohammed Shahzeb Khan, a Pakistani national in Quebec, allegedly plotted a mass killing at a Jewish center in Brooklyn, New York, in support of ISIS. Ahmed El-Didi appeared in a 2015 ISIS propaganda video dismembering a prisoner, was granted Canadian citizenship in May of 2024, despite his violent past. In 2023, Calgary resident Zakira Rida Hussein pleaded guilty to facilitating terrorism. Surrey resident Abdul Aziz Kamam was arrested for carrying out violent assaults in the name of ISIS, including slashing a man's throat on public transit. That, my friends, puts the Greyhound guy to shame. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be joking about that, but that's some serious stuff, and that's really concerning. When it comes to the energy sector, Swedish battery developer Northvolt is delaying its planned Quebec battery plant despite receiving $2.7 billion in subsidies, which was set for completion by 2026, with a new timeline is unknown. Well, when it comes to these battery plants, it's really funny how we kind of keep hiring all these foreign entities and they take the government money and all of a sudden things are not getting built. Well, isn't our government good at getting projects done? Yeah. All right. Continue on. Billionaires in space. SpaceX sends tech entrepreneur Jared Isaacman into orbit on September 10th for a 5-day flight well beyond the International Space Station. That will be interesting, kind of see what happens there. And prison for protests. So this is actually a story that's coming out of Alberta, and it's a story that a lot of us are probably pretty well aware of what's happening to a degree. We've heard about it. But protesters in the Coutts, Alberta border crossing blockade have been sentenced to 6.5 years behind bars. Unfortunately, Anthony Olenek showed no emotion, while Chris Harbert appeared glum and folded his arms as the sentence was read out of Court of King's Bench in Lethbridge, Alberta. Neither are to serve their full sentences, as Justice David Lebrenz gave them nearly 4 years credit for time they have already spent in custody. Both were convicted of mischief and possession of a firearm, dangerous to the public space, while Olenek was also found guilty of possession of a pipe bomb. So, unfortunately, the really serious allegations they were not found guilty of, and the things that they were found guilty of, which were kind of, misdemeanors at best from my perspective, 6.5 years. Dang. Well, at least we're carrying out justice. Water guns and these guys. Holy smokes. So that's kind of what is going on in the news. Last thing we want to kind of recap before we move on here. Also, I want to the reason why I'm kind of like a little bit going back and forth, my eyes to the screen to you, is I'm just finding out that our live stream, I cannot see your comments at all. I can't see a dang thing, so I have no idea what anyone's saying. So I unfortunately won't be able to address your comments today. There's something going on, and it won't let me see your comments. So that's a bummer. Hopefully that changes by the end of the stream. If it doesn't, that's why. So, well, when it comes to what we watched on Tuesday night, just a little bit of American politics for fun. Curious from your perspective, who do you think won? Who do you think won? Who won that debate? Was it Kamala or was it Trump himself? We don't know. Well, from my perspective, hate to say it, Trump, I believe, got his lunch handed to him. And it was kind of a bummer to see because there's so much he could have hit her on and pinned her down on, and he didn't. All he had to do was just put a mirror up and reflect everything she was saying back to her and just really highlight her horrible record, not just as a vice president, but as working in California and all things that she did. There's so much material there just to tear her up, and he didn't do that. She kind of threw some barbs out early on, and then he got in his feelings real quick, and he just got frustrated and angry. I was like, dang. Like, to people who are voting Trump and people who see what's going on, this debate wasn't going to change anybody's perspective. It wasn't going to change anyone from the left to the right and right to the left. It wasn't going to happen. But the moderates are really important. And so when it comes to moderates are typically people who aren't politically engaged. They're not kind of seeing what's going on. So when you see Trump getting flustered and frustrated and shouting out things like, the Haitians are eating your cats, to people like us who follow news, know that, yeah, that has happened. That has been happening in Ohio. To the regular person who's not politically initiated, he sounds like a crazy man. And so there's some things like, yeah, these things are true, but you probably shouldn't touch on it because, unfortunately, people are just going to think you're crazy. And you're trying to win votes, especially from that moderate base in such a tight election. You need those votes. So that's kind of what I see happened. From my perspective, from a Politico pundit perspective, Trump lost. However, I was watching other shows, and their takes on it was really interesting to me. And for Reuters put out a poll and learned that the poll out of 10 people, 6 out of 10 undecided voters, 6 are leaning towards Trump, 3 are firm on Kamala, and 1 who's still undecided after that debate, which I thought was interesting. I was like, I wonder why. Why are they still leaning Trump if he got torched the way he did, from my perspective at least? And reason being is because even though he was angry and seemed flustered and frustrated, he was Trump. He was who we thought he was. And that's kind of what people expect, and it is what it is. And Kamala said a lot of things, but she still didn't come out with any real policy. So all people can go off of is the team that she's been on for the past 3.5 years. Team Blue, Team Biden. And they see what happened in the economy. They've seen what happened with Trump. They've seen what happened with Biden. And there's a lot of flowery language coming from old Kamala. But I don't know if we can afford another 4 years of her. So even though she performed better from my perspective in the debate, people are still looking at the record on their own, which I think was interesting. And yes, Trump was conveying anger. Anger. And the problem is, a lot of you who are watching, a lot of people in the States, are also feeling angry and frustrated and at a loss. So, Trump exuding his anger was probably a good thing because he emulated and was able to have a mirror up to how the regular person might be feeling right now. So that was what I thought was really interesting when it comes to the debate. You let us know down in the comments when I can see them afterwards and see what the heck's going on with those. That's really frustrating. So on to not bearing the lead, which we definitely did here in the first 6 minutes of the show. Wow, we're already 15 minutes in. Gee. Thought this was interesting. Just make sure I've got the right story up here. Ottawa announced this today. Looks to relocate thousands of asylum seekers to provinces from Ontario, Quebec. Thousands of them. What is happening? What is going on? Why this announcement after the NDP dropped out of the supply and confidence deal? Why would they be touching on something like immigration at a time when they're about to go back to the House? It's going to fire people up. It's going to get people frustrated and annoyed. Like, why are we coming out and being proactive on this? Well, I think we'll about to find out. Remember last week or last Tuesday, we talked about the Bloc kind of, all right, see the NDP out, Bloc fits right in. And one of the things the Bloc came out and said is that one of the deals they're trying to get going is how can we have more control over immigration within Quebec? That was one of the big things they wanted to have a conversation about. So when you look at some of these figures, we'll take a look here. So right now, this is the asylum seeker distribution chart. So we're going to be looking right now. We'll start with Ontario and Quebec. Ontario is at 105,000 asylum seekers, and they're going to be going down to about 91,046. So they're going to be losing close to 14,000 of them. Quebec, on the other hand, has around 99,500 asylum seekers, and they're going down to 51,882, leaving them with a decrease of 47,671. Shout out to my Atlantic provinces. New Brunswick's going from 384 to 4,600. You're getting 4,000 more people on you. PEI. Oh, poor PEI. 44. They have a lack of resources as it is. You're getting 943. So you're getting an increase of 900. Nova Scotia, we're at 397. We're going up to 6,100. So that's a plus of 5,734. Newfoundland, you're at 291. You're going up 3,066, which with an increase of 2,775. BC, you're going down. These numbers don't seem totally right, but you're going to be seeing an increase of 21,000 coming up for you. Oh, sorry, yeah, you're at 11,500. You're going to increase to 32,500, which is going to be about 21,000 increase. Alberta, you're going from 9,700 to 27,800, which is about 28,000. Saskatchewan, you're going from 500 to 7,000. And Manitoba, you're going from 1,378 to 8,490. So you can kind of see this chart here where it's increasing and it's decreasing. So there's only really two provinces that are decreasing and everyone else is increasing exponentially. You can see them all right here. So Ontario's going down to negative 13%. Quebec's going down negative 47%. You have New Brunswick going up 1,098%. You have Nova Scotia going up 1,444%. And PEI going over 2,000% increase. The Atlantic provinces are going to get hit hard. We are known as the know-nothing provinces. The nothing provinces. We've always had a struggle with resources ever since the mines closed down, and it's always been a harder time to make a living out here. We are already having a serious difficult time with the immigrants that we have right now, with just being able to house them, being able to make sure they have enough doctors, make sure they have enough resources to be able to enjoy their life here. Now we're bringing in more. And this is the solution they're bringing us. We're not going to decrease the amount of people we're bringing in. We're actually going to keep bringing in the same amount, but now we're just going to try to lessen the burden on Ontario and Quebec and then increase the burden everywhere else. Ontario and Quebec are feeling it, but so is everybody else. We just don't have enough room and can't house everybody. That's really the concern here. That's the problem. But Mark Miller says differently. Ottawa is considering a plan to relocate thousands of asylum seekers. According to a federal government briefing document obtained by National Post, 235,825 people are seeking asylum in Canada, with the bulk making their claims in Ontario and Quebec, Canada's two most populous provinces. But if Canada were to find a way to distribute asylum seekers around the country based on provincial populations, Similar to what premiers asked for following a July meeting, tens of thousands of refugees would be spread out around the country. Alberta, for example, would receive nearly 28,000 asylum seekers. British Columbia would receive more than 500,000. And Nova Scotia would see 4,952 refugees. The reality is that Quebec and Ontario are facing disproportionate pressures compared to any other province in the country, as they've been welcoming the majority of asylum seekers, said Renee LeBlanc, a proctor, a spokesperson in Immigration Minister Mark Miller's office, in an email. The briefing document, LeBlanc Proctor said, is meant to help guide discussions between ministers and asylum seekers. Blaine Higgs, New Brunswick, voicing their displeasure. They're not particularly happy with taking on this amount of people. In late July, Quebec's then Immigration Minister Christine Fréchette wrote to Miller suggesting that the federal government adopt a quota system for each province, setting out a number of asylum seekers each will receive based upon their capacity to do so. That's a key word, capacity. The letter, as reported by CBC News, urged the federal government to restrict asylum seekers' work permits to specific provinces in order to ensure they moved or refused to cover accommodation costs except in the specific area to which the asylum seeker was told to move. Speaking to reporters at the Liberal caucus retreat in Nanaimo, BC, Miller, the federal immigration officer, called Higgs' comments irresponsible and said it was dumb for someone to have leaked the working document. Miller said Ontario and Quebec have been magnets for arrivals of asylum seekers, but that housing refugees in federally funded hotels hasn't worked well and is expensive. Interesting. He said Ottawa is looking at a model with a carrot and stick incentive that would push provinces that are reluctant about accepting a larger share of asylum seekers. There's only so far the federal government can actually be nice and say, please, please, Miller said. We also have levers that we need to pull and push. We have a number of provinces. It's no surprise that have no particular interest in taking asylum seekers. We have some where there is interest, but they also have questions with respect to financial compensation, Miller said. So bringing the provinces is an important part of being responsible, and as a federation, we would expect New Brunswick to be responsible and step up. That comment by the Premier Higgs was highly irresponsible. That right there pretty much sums up this government. We're going to do this even though it's a terrible idea and people are struggling. And if you don't get on board, well, we have other ways to deal with that. And we're going to take care of you. We love these veiled threats coming from the Liberal government. And people are struggling. People are hurting. And the people who are coming from these other countries, we've said it time and time again. I feel the nausea. I hate that I keep kind of hitting the same point, but it's true. I don't think we're actually making their lives better. In some ways, I think we're making their lives worse. And what are we to do as a community? We're stretched beyond our means. Resources tapped to the brim. And yet they keep bringing in more people that essentially will be on the street. No job, no resources. What do you expect them to do? The sin is what that is. It's a sin. But in that same realm, the temporary foreign workers program obviously has been catching the eye of many. People are concerned about it. And because temporary foreign workers are being hired over Canadians. The whole goal of the program when it was first introduced in 1972 was, okay, if we don't have enough Canadians to staff jobs, we need to bring in the foreign workers. And they work with terrible conditions, a fraction of the cost, but they take it because it's technically better than what they get from back home. And they come for a bit, and then they send them back. That's how the program works. And we've abused it more and more under Trudeau's guidance and leadership. But the interesting thing about Trudeau, I thought was intriguing, is he had a lot of critiques about Harper using this program. A lot of critiques that expanded too much. And we love the internet because we know we love to have receipts. Justin Trudeau, How to Fix the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, written in May 5th, 2014. And he wrote this whole column, lighten up Harper for taking advantage of the foreign worker program. We need to stop relying on it so much, he says. You have the article here. You can look it up. And it was really interesting. He said in his third paragraph, since taking office, Prime Minister Stephen Harper and the Conservative Party have transformed the TFW program, which was originally designed to bring in temporary workers on a limited basis when no Canadian could be found, into one that has brought in a large pool of vulnerable workers. As a result, the number of short-term foreign workers in Canada has more than doubled, from 141,000 in 2005 to 338,000 in 2012. There were nearly as many temporary foreign workers admitted to the country in 2012 as there were permanent residents, and 213,000 of the former compared to 257,887. And he goes on this whole article and just lighten up the Harper government over the use of the program. But you heard me right at the start of this. Where did this program originate? 1972. It was brought in. I'll let you do a quick Google search. Who was the Prime Minister in 72? None other than Trudeau Sr. Thought this was a great idea. This is low key, as many have said it before. This is a low form of slavery. It's close. It's teetering that line. You're giving people next to nothing for the labor. It's spooky. So the reason why you bring up this whole thing from 2014 is because the foreign worker program has only expanded under Trudeau. It's as big or bigger than it was under Harper. Interesting how that works, especially with this government, right? There's something to look at. The Guardian here. This was back in August, but we'll remind people of it now. UN envoy calls Canada's use of migrant workers breeding ground for slavery. Canada's reliance on temporary foreign workers as a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery, a UN special rapporteur has warned amid growing calls to overhaul a controversial program. The damning report from UN investigator Tomoya Okanaka found that deep power imbalances and discriminatory practice in Canada cuts costs for companies but exploits workers from the global south. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? It's very, very similar. Very similar. Oh, it's technically, you're overreacting. It's not close to slavery because we're giving them something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the slave owners probably felt the same way back in the South back in the day. It's not free labor. We give them a house. They get to stay in a shack. We feed them. Sometimes. The only difference this one is a little bit better is because they give them a little bit of monetary value. Makes it not slavery. Oddly close. Oddly close. Where do we go from here? Well, it's interesting. I'm going to bring it up here. It's actually looking really janky on my desktop here. But you can go to LMIA Map, which is a very interesting little tool that was created. It's a Redditor. It was a Redditor who created a Tableau map of the claims by province and industry in Canada of like where they're using temporary foreign workers. Some ones that kind of were a little bit eyebrow raising was Redspace here in Halifax. It's a tech company, and they are essentially an agency, and they do a lot of work. They work a lot in close tandem with IBM. And you're telling me that these guys are using temporary foreign workers? There are no computer programmers, computer science students from our local universities here at Dalhousie or NSCC who could fill one of those jobs. You sure? Or is it just because it's cheap to hire them? Not looking good. Fox Harbour is another place here in Nova Scotia that hired 3 servers and 4 kitchen staff. And this is a place that has their own airport. You're telling me they couldn't find anybody who wanted to work a sweet service job at a sweet resort? I know it's hard work, don't get me wrong. But man, the tips there are pretty nice. You tell me. What is happening there? There's other places, obviously, agricultural and fisheries hired a lot of foreign workers, which that's normal. That typically happens, and that's seasonal. And that's a place where we typically do see it, and that's not a surprise. But there's just been such an expansion of this program since Trudeau has taken office that it's even worse than what he claimed it was back in 2014. Modern form of slavery. UN rapporteur said it themselves. The Liberal government said, that's a bit of a stretch. You don't want to go down that path. Dang. Okay. Interesting stories. Well, last but not least, we are moving on. Poilievre looks to force a confidence vote ASAP. So, Poilievre has come out and says he's pretty intent on making this happen, making sure we have a confidence vote fairly soon. The National Post reports Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he will try to trigger an election and challenge the other opposition leaders to help him bring down the Liberal government. I'm announcing the common sense that Conservatives will put forward a non-confidence motion at the earliest possible opportunity, said Poilievre at a press conference outside the House of Commons on Wednesday. Poilievre will need the support of both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois to support his motion in order for the minority government to fall. He is making the move a week after NDP leader Jagmeet Singh announced in a video message that his party was ending the confidence supply agreement with the Liberals that has kept the Trudeau government in power for the last 2.5 years. Poilievre said unless Singh actually votes to bring the government down, the agreement will still be in place. So right now we're playing a lot of politics, right? We all know, like if our show can see that the Bloc's swinging in and going to take over the spot of the NDP, sure, Poilievre is very aware as well. Right now there's a lot of posturing happening as we go into as the House gets seated next week. This is the last week of figuring things out, posturing until we get into the House of Commons and real questions are asked and we get no answers. So what's going to happen is Poilievre's going to put forward this confidence vote, and likely what will happen is Singh will vote against it and vote against the Liberals, but the Bloc will, in fact, take their spot and vote in favor of the Liberals. Likely what we're going to see next week, or at least within the next 2 weeks. The reason why I say that is because of what we talked about earlier tonight. The Bloc was intent to make sure they had more controls over immigration. And you see that they're going to get almost a 50% decrease of asylum seekers in their country, in their province, that are being sent elsewhere. No other province got that kind of a drop. Only they did. Which tells me that they are in a supply and confidence deal with the Liberals. And that, my friends, is wild. That, my friends, is disheartening. Because where do we go? Like, we talked about it, that a party that only represents one province is going to hold up our electoral processes in this country. Literally holding the government hostage to get what they want, which I can't fault them for. Just stinks that our system works that way. So that is it for today's show. We're really grateful for you joining us and taking the time out. And we got some, one things I kind of wanted to hit on before we ended off was just a bit of laughter, a little bit of let's actually see if my comment sections come back alive yet or not. No, I can't see your comments for the life of me. I'm so sorry, y'all. That stinks. What a bummer. Well, we will do one last thing here. We'll show off one last video because this kind of cracked me up. And it was obviously Theo Vaughn talking with Bobby Lee over those next 30 seconds. And yeah, let's have a bit of a laugh, shall we?
Wow. Is there more? Are there more Asians doing Trump? Because do Asians support Trump or not?
Okay, I think some do.
Yeah, I'm sure some
when
do.
it comes to the economy, probably. You know what I mean?
Because what is this one?
This is a Trump country. We live in the southeast. We drink sweet tea. We don't drink socialist Kool-Aid.
Wow.
So they're out there.
Yeah, like
this is a sweet tea country. We don't drink the Trump Kool-Aid. What does he say? Socialist with the Kool-Aid. Wow, dude. I wrote that.
That was iconic, I had to admit. Love to see it. Love to see what's happening. It was, I mean, admittedly, it is funny to see someone an immigrant coming over saying, this is the Southeast. We drink sweet tea, not this socialist Kool-Aid. That is iconic. We are here for it. Well, thank you all so much yet again. Whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going on a walk, going to the grocery store, or hanging out with your family, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace.